And they made fantastic plays, out there at Yankee Stadium, because there's plenty of room to roam at Yankee Stadium, and they made those catches impossible catches, but they did come up with them. So this is what made me lose my temper a little bit at the time, and I kicked the bag, or close to the bag. Had I kicked the bag, I guess I'd have been in real trouble. I probably wouldn't have finished the series. If you ask me what people remember most about me, they'd probably say the hitting streak. 56 games. I've heard that number more times than I've heard my own name. I don't mind it. I'm proud of what happened that summer. I worked for every swing, every base hit, every long afternoon under the sun. Nobody gave me those games. But the older I got, the less I found myself thinking about the streak. Funny, isn't it? You spend your whole life becoming famous for one thing, and then one day you wake up and realize that isn't the memory keeping you awake at night. What keeps me awake isn't baseball. It's the people I couldn't hold on to. It's the words I never said. It's the phone calls that never came. People think a man who won all those championships must have lived a happy life. I used to let them believe that because it was easier than explaining the truth. The truth is, I got pretty good at smiling when photographers were around. After they left the room, always felt a little quieter. Maybe that's what happens when people spend years telling you you're a legend. They stop asking whether you're doing all right. They assume legends don't hurt. Believe me, we do. I grew up in a house where my father believed real men worked with their hands. Baseball looked like a waste of time to him. Every time I left home carrying a glove instead of fishing gear, I could feel his disappointment even when he never said the words. I told myself I'd prove him wrong. Maybe I did. But proving people wrong doesn't always make you feel right. Looking back now, I can honestly say there were moments I'd trade away every headline just to have one more quiet afternoon with the people I loved. People still ask me about Marilyn. They ask about the Yankees. They ask about the streak. Almost nobody asks me what it all cost. That's probably why I'm telling this story now. Because after all these years, I think it's finally time someone heard that part too. People see the pictures now, and they think they know the man. A clean uniform, a straight face, never too much emotion. I suppose I gave them that version of me. Back then I believed that was what a ball player was supposed to do. You kept your feelings to yourself. You shook a man's hand. You played the game the right way. Then you went home without complaining. At least that's what I tried to do. The truth is, there were plenty of nights I drove home in complete silence because I couldn't stop replaying everything that happened that day. Not just the game, life. I worried about my family more than people ever knew. My parents had come to America looking for something better, and nothing about those early years felt easy. We weren't the kind of family that talked about our feelings. We worked, we got through the day, then we did it again the next morning. My father wanted me on a fishing boat. To him, that was honest work, steady work. Baseball didn't make much sense. Chasing a ball around a field wasn't how a man was supposed to earn a living. I never hated him for thinking that. Looking back now, I understand it better than I did as a young man. He had spent his whole life trying to feed his family. He couldn't afford dreams. I could. Maybe that's the biggest difference between our generations. When baseball finally gave me everything I had hoped for, I wanted him to be proud. He was in his own way. He just wasn't the kind of man who said it out loud. For a long time, I kept chasing that feeling anyway. Not championships, not records, just one simple sentence I never really heard. I'm proud of you, Joe. Funny how something so small can stay with a man his entire life. People think success fills every empty place inside you. Sometimes it does. Sometimes it only teaches you how to hide the emptiness a little better. I became one of the most recognized faces in America. Crowds stood when I walked onto the field. Kids wanted my autograph. Newspapers wrote about every game I played. Yet there were evenings when I'd sit alone in my apartment, take off my shoes, and realize the applause never followed me through the front door. That's something fame never tells you. It can fill a stadium. It can't fill a quiet room. And that wasn't even the hardest lesson life had waiting for me. The hardest one came later, when I discovered that being loved by millions doesn't mean you know how to hold on to the one person who matters most. I didn't go looking for a life in the spotlight. Baseball brought it to my front door. Then one day everything changed because I met Marilyn. Even now people say her name with a smile like they're talking about one of the greatest love stories America ever had. I wish it had felt that simple. When we first met, I wasn't thinking about becoming half of the most famous couple in the country. I just saw a woman who could make an entire room stop without even trying. The cameras loved her. The strange thing is she never seemed comfortable with all that attention. Neither did I. People assumed we understood each other because we were both famous. Fame doesn't make life easier. Sometimes it just gives two lonely people something in common. There were days when we laughed until neither of us could breathe. We'd forget the reporters outside, forget the headlines, forget that everyone wanted a piece of our lives. For a little while, we were just Joe and Marilyn. Those are the memories I still hold on to. Not the magazine covers, not the glamorous parties, just the quiet moments nobody else ever saw. But quiet moments never lasted very long. Hollywood expected Marilyn to belong to the world. Baseball expected me to stay composed no matter what happened. Neither of us really knew how to live inside those expectations. I was raised to believe that a husband protected his family by keeping things private. She lived in an industry where privacy barely existed. Every photographer wanted another picture. Every gossip columnist wanted another story. Before long, it felt like our marriage belonged to everyone except us. I made mistakes. I'm old enough now to admit that without trying to defend myself. I could be stubborn. I liked routine. I wanted a peaceful life that looked nothing like Hollywood. Marilyn wanted to keep growing, to keep acting, to keep chasing dreams that reached far beyond the life I imagined. Neither one of us was wrong. We were simply trying to build a marriage while the whole country stood outside the window watching. That kind of pressure changes people. It changed us. Arguments became easier than conversations. Silence lasted longer than it should have. By the time we realized how far apart we had drifted, the distance already felt impossible to cross. People think heartbreak happens all at once. It doesn't. Most of the time it arrives quietly. One conversation at a time. One misunderstanding at a time. One lonely evening after another. By the time you recognize what's happening, you're already standing in the middle of the ending. The day we signed the divorce papers, people treated it like another headline, another celebrity story. Another marriage that didn't last. For everyone else, it was news. For me, it felt like I'd misplaced a part of my life that I never found again. I didn't talk much about it. That was my way. I'd always believed some pain was meant to stay private. So I kept showing up when people expected to see me. I smiled when I had to. I answered questions about baseball because that was easier than answering questions about my heart. Time moved on. At least it looked that way from the outside. People have asked me over the years if I ever stopped loving Marilyn. I don't know how to answer that without sounding foolish. Love doesn't always disappear just because a marriage ends. Sometimes it changes into something quieter, something you carry instead of something you share. We saw each other from time to time after the divorce. Those meetings were never easy. There were things I wanted to say. There were probably things she wanted to say too. But life has a habit of putting pride between people who still care about each other. Then came the phone call I never wanted. When Marilyn died, the whole world mourned a movie star. I mourned someone whose laugh I could still hear, and someone I had once believed I'd grow old beside. People wrote books. They argued about what happened. They searched for explanations. I stayed quiet, not because I didn't care, because I cared too much. There are some losses you can't explain to strangers. You simply learn to live around them. For years after she was gone, I had flowers delivered to her grave. I never told many people why. I didn't do it for attention. There were no cameras, no interviews, no headlines waiting for me. It was just something I felt I needed to do. Maybe it was my way of apologizing for everything we never figured out. Maybe it was my way of keeping one promise alive after all the others had fallen apart. I honestly don't know. When you get to my age, you stop pretending to have all the answers. You just remember sometimes that's enough. Sometimes it isn't. Baseball gave me championships. It gave me respect. It gave me a place in history that no one can take away. But if you ask me whether I'd trade one of those championship rings for one more ordinary afternoon sitting across from Marilyn, talking without reporters, without cameras, without the whole world watching, I'd have to think about it a long time. And that answer probably tells you more about my life than any baseball statistic ever could. After I walked away from baseball, a lot of people assumed life would finally become peaceful. No more road trips. No more pressure to get a hit every night. No more newspapers grading every game I played. They were wrong. Retirement sounds comforting until it actually arrives. For the first time in my life, nobody was waiting for me at the ballpark. Nobody needed Joe DiMaggio anymore. That was harder to accept than I ever expected. When you've spent so many years living by a schedule, waking up with a purpose, hearing the crowd every afternoon, silence can feel almost unnatural. Some mornings I'd wake up before sunrise without any reason. Old habits don't disappear just because the uniform is hanging in a closet. I'd make coffee, sit by the window, and wonder where all those years had gone. It didn't seem possible that the young kid trying to prove his father wrong had somehow become an old man watching the world move on without him. Friends I played beside started disappearing, one by one. A phone call here, a funeral there. After a while, you stop counting because it hurts too much. That's the part of getting older nobody prepares you for. You spend your youth competing against men. You spend your old age saying goodbye to them. People still recognize me wherever I went. They'd smile. They'd ask about the streak. Sometimes they'd ask me to tell the same old stories I'd told 100 times before. I never minded. Seeing baseball still bring happiness to people made me grateful. But there was always a strange feeling afterward. They knew the player. Very few knew the man. I had learned to live with that. Maybe every public figure does. The image lasts longer than the person behind it. If there's one thing I've come to understand, it's that success doesn't protect you from loneliness. It doesn't stop regret. It doesn't slow time. It certainly doesn't give you another chance to fix the mistakes that matter most. If you're listening to me now, maybe you're younger than I was when I finally understood that if you are, don't wait as long as I did. Tell people you love them while they're still here. Don't assume there will always be another season, another conversation, another tomorrow. Life has a way of ending chapters before we're ready to turn the page. When people visit Cooperstown, they'll see my plaque. They'll read about the championships, the All-Star games, the streak. Those things deserve to be remembered. I worked hard for every one of them. But I hope after hearing my story you'll remember something else too. Even the people who seem to have everything can spend years carrying losses that no one else can see. That's the truth I kept to myself for most of my life. And maybe it's the most honest thing I've ever said. When I look back now, I don't see my life as a list of victories. I see faces, my parents, old teammates, fans who waited outside the stadium just hoping for a handshake, and Marilyn. Some memories still make me smile. Others still hurt. I suppose that's what a full life looks like. You don't reach the end carrying only the good moments, you carry all of them together. People have spent years trying to decide what my greatest achievement was. The streak, the championships, the World Series titles. I'll leave that argument to the historians. What matters to me now is something much simpler. I hope I treated enough people with respect. I hope I made my family proud, even if we didn't always know how to say those words to each other. I hope the young players who watched me learned that talent means very little without discipline. And I hope someone listening to me today understands that being admired by millions is not the same as finding peace. If I've learned anything, it's that life moves faster than you think. One day you're a young man chasing a dream. The next year, the old fellow, everyone asks about stories from long ago, so don't spend every hour chasing applause. Applause fades. New records are broken. New heroes come along. What stays with you are the people who waited for you when the crowd had already gone home. Those are the moments worth protecting. Those are the conversations worth having. Those are the memories that matter when the stadium lights finally go dark. If my story has taught you anything, I hope it's this. Don't wait until you're an old man to tell the truth about your life. Don't wait until someone is gone to tell them what they meant to you. I waited too long, more than once. That's a regret no championship could ever erase. Thank you for listening. After all these years, it feels good to finally put these memories into words.